Hello my beautiful people, it's your girl Yele of Yele Stitches. Today I'm going to be teaching you a tutorial on how to make a pattern for a simple dress, either a simple straight dress or a simple pencil dress. So right now I'm just writing down all my measurements. These measurements are those that I took last week. If you watched my previous video that I dropped last week, you understand what I'm talking about. That tutorial was all about measuring yourself if no one is around, so you can measure both yourself and someone else if you're put in such a situation. So right now I'm just writing all the horizontal measurements and all my vertical measurements. And it's not that clear, but those of us with spiritual eyes, spiritual eyes, we can see it all. We can go through the camera and use infrared rays to see the measurements that I wrote down there. Okay, the first thing that we need to do now is to just draw this horizontal line. I'm just drawing the horizontal line so as to show exactly where my pattern is going to start from. After that, I measure 3 inches, then I measure 5 inches. This is a very good standard for everybody, however you are making it. On that 5-inch mark, I go down by 1 inch. Then I join from my 3-inch mark to that 1 inch. This is representing your shoulder slant because people's shoulders are not straight, except you're a special person with a straight shoulder. But after doing that, the next thing is to measure your shoulder length. Okay, so my shoulder length is 14.5 in total. Divided by 2 is going to be 7.25. okay, so I divide 14.5 by 2 and I get 7.25. and now, since I know that this part is 3 inches, all that is left is to add the remaining 4.25 to make it a total of 7.25. okay, so that entire shoulder slant and the front is 7.25. The next thing that I have to do now is to measure my armhole length. If you did not take the measurement of your client or of yourself, the easiest thing to do is to add 0.5 to your shoulder length. So since my shoulder length is 7.25, I just add 0.5 and then I add 7.75. so this formula works for almost everyone. I think it works for most people. So far it has been working as a shoulder length, as an armhole length, and it has been working very well. So on that position, I draw my chest line. After drawing my chest line, the next measurement that I need to take, the next vertical measurement that I need to take is the bust apex. That is from my shoulder to my bust. Okay, and before I do that, I have to record the bust span. That is the measurement from one nipple to the other nipple, so I know exactly where my shoulder to bust lands on my pattern. Okay, so now that I've measured my shoulder to bust, the next thing I need to measure is from my shoulder to my under bust, and then after that, shoulder to waist. Okay, so those are the vertical measurements that I'm going to take. Then after that, I take from my waist to my hip, which is just 9 inches. So I have all my points. The first line I'm drawing now is my bust line, shoulder to bust. The next line I'm drawing is my shoulder to under bust, and after that I'm drawing from my shoulder to my waist. Then the next line is waist to hip. Okay, so that is chest line, bust line, under bust line, waist line, and then hip line. The next thing we have to do now is to take the bust span, that is from one nipple to the other nipple. We take it at the bust line and we take it at the hip line, and then just draw a straight line to join both of them together. Okay, so I just drew that straight line. So that line is representing the bust span or bust distance, or distance between two nipples. Now the next thing is I'm going to put in all my horizontal measurements divided into 4. So there is no bust allocation for a simple gown, because if you try bust allocation, the dress will look really weird. So that is the reason why there is no bust allocation. Instead, we are going to put that from up to down instead of the bust allocation. So after putting all my horizontal measurements, you can see that there is that sharp corner from my bust to my waist to my hip, and this would not look great on your fabric, and that is why you have to introduce darts. The purpose of the dart is so that that side would be smoother on your fabric. So I'm introducing a 1.5 inches dart, that is 0.75 on either side of my bust span, and I'm going to return that 1.5 that I took there and put it back at the side so that I can have a smoother side of the dress. And then at the bust line, I went down by 0.5 inch, and on the hip line I went up by 2 inches, and then I'm just going to join my dart line together like so. Okay, so if I was making a simple dress that I did not need any contouring at the under bust, I can leave my dart like this. If your gown is simple, you want it to be free, you don't want it to be too tight, you can just leave it like this. But if you want contouring on the under bust, you want that under bust to be sharp, you want it to be very sharp and very curvy, you want it to hug all your breast well, then you take the contouring in and you make sure that your under bust is also contoured in by extra 0.25 on either side of that dart. So you can see that the upper dart at the under bust and the one at the waist are exactly the same now. Okay, so now I've joined my curve, and you see that is a smoother curve compared to the other one that I did with a pencil. That will have not been great on your fabric at all, and you'll have had issues. So I just elongated the line to my chest line, and now we are going to move down to the bottom of our dress. Now I'm just going to draw a straight line all the way down. If you are making a straight skirt, just draw a straight line all the way down. The same measurement you use at your hip is the same measurement you are going to use as the length of your dress. But if you are making a pencil dress, you are going to have to subtract 1.5 inches from your hip circumference and use that one. That's 10. The hip that I'm using is 10 minus 1.5, that's 8.5, and so that means the bottom of your dress will be 8.5 inches. So now I want to just know how long I want the gown to be. I marked the point that I want the gown to be. I'm sorry it's off screen again. I really tried my best to make sure it's on screen. I don't know the village people that are doing this to me, but I'm just going to join a line from my hip slanted to the new measurements that I took at the bottom, which is hip minus 1.5 inches. So the slanted one is the pencil gown, while the straight one is for your straight gown. Now the next thing that I have to work on is my bust dart. So on my bust line, I just go up by 0.75 and 0.75 inches, the same way I did for the waist dart, and then I went out by 0.5 inch on the bust line, and then I just joined both of them together like so, and that is my bust dart, and you see that's my waist dart. The next thing that I need to work on now is my armhole. So the length of the armhole is about 7.75. I find the middle of that. So once you find the middle of that, you go in by 0.75 inches, and then you join it with your armhole curve to your chest line. You can use freehand to do it, and you can use that nice curve if you have the curve. I'm going to put the link in the description if you need that curve. Now I want to go into a little bit of detail about the neckline. Now for a standard neckline, if you are making a turtleneck or a simple t-shirt, the standard measurement of your four corner is going to be 3 inches by 3 inches. If you want a four corner neck, this is what it's going to look like. Four corner like this, 3 by 3. Now if it's going to be a t-shirt or a turtleneck or a jacket, you are going to need a curved neckline. So it's still 3 by 3, but you are going to curve it out like so. You see, my curve line is so very important because now that it is freehand time, I'm drawing a horrible curve. All right, so now I'm going to show you what a v-neck also looks like. It's just a slant across, and you can always make your neckline wider and deeper, wider on your shoulder slant and deeper on the fold. Okay, so if I want to make a boat neck, for example, I measure extra 2 inches on my shoulder slant, and then I use the normal 3 inches, because the boat neck is just wide but it is not deep. So you see the difference between how you can make your neckline wide but not deep, or deep but not wide, or both wide and deep. So this last curve showing you how it can be both wide and deep at the same time. So you can see the different ways you can make your neckline. But for a simple one, it is the 3x3, the standard neckline, that is the 3x3, the curved line 3x3. I hope you don't have any questions about that, but if you do, please ask me in the comment section. Moving on to our back pattern. The first thing I did was to extend all the lines from my front pattern across my pattern paper, because I don't want to cut a new pattern paper. And then I just put a 1-inch zip allowance there, just to show the difference between the front and the back. The first thing is the 1-inch zip allowance. Then after that, I just take the measurements, the 3x5, as I did on the front pattern, and then I just go on from there. So I extended all the relevant lines except the underbust line, because of course you know your back doesn't have an underbust. Now remember that there is a bust that was sticking in at the front, which was a total of 1.5 inches. So I'm going to subtract that from the entire length of my back measurement. For example, if my front length was 40 inches, the back is going to be 38.5. It won't be 40 inches again. So please have that in mind when you are drawing the pattern for your back, or when you are drawing your back pattern. Then another difference again is also where the bust point lands. The bust point for the back lands at least 1 inch above the bust point for the back. So your new bust point will be 1 inch above your normal front bust point. So if the bust point for the front is 10 inches, the bust point for the back will be 9 inches. Not like the back has a bust point, but just so you have an idea of where to put your bust measurements. Now the next thing is also to measure your waist measurement. Then after measuring your waist measurements, you measure your hip measurement as well. Now the next thing to also note is that you need to eradicate your zip bulge at the back, because you don't want your zipper to start doing the dinosaur shape or whatever it's shape that it wants to do if your zipper is not well corrected. So I removed just 0.5 inches, and then I replaced the 0.5 inches on the other side. Now I'm going to use pencil again to show you what the side curve looks like, and to see if we need a dart for the back. Now for this one, we also need a dart for the back, because it is too sharp on that side. Look at it, the line is still a little bit too sharp, so we still need to add that for the back. Some people's measurements do not require that anymore. That line looks very nice once we remove zip bulge, but for this particular measurement we still need to put in the dart. So I'm going to take my bust distance of 3.5 inches on my bust, my waist, and my hip line, and I'm going to join all these lines together so I can easily take in my darts. Okay, so on my waistline, I'm just going to take 1 inch darts, that is 0.5 on either side, because I don't need up to 1.5 inches like the front, since I already took in my zip bulge. So I'm just going to add my 1 inch on that side again, and then join all the lines together. And as you can see, the curve is so much better and will look so much better when I'm cutting it on my fabric, or when I'm sewing it together on my fabric. Now on my bust line, I'm going to go down by 0.5 inches, join it to my darts like so, and then join it about 1 inch from, or you can use 1 inch to 2 inches from the bottom of your hip measurement. And then now I just join all my points to all my dart lines together, and then we have it. Okay, so the next thing is to measure the length of my back, which is the front minus 1.5 inches. Do not forget to remove 1.5 inches. So that will be the length of the back. After this, I just draw my hip line straight, and that is for a straight dress, and I also put the slant in for a pencil dress. So the slanted one is the pencil dress. Remember, you just remove 1.5 from the side, and the straight one is for a straight dress if you are making a straight gown. Now for the zipper, I'm going to draw from 1 inch below my chest line. I'm going to join it to that zip bulge 0.5 inches that I took, and then I'm just going to draw it to like 1 inch or 1.5 inches above my hip line. So that is my zip bulge to the excess that I'm taking away, so we don't have a zip bulge at the back. If you have any questions, please ask me in the comment section and I'll readily answer. So now I'm also taking the armhole, the half of the armhole in the front. At this point I don't need to go in by 0.75 because this is the back armhole, and so I just draw a line from the top to my chest line, and that is the back armhole. So the next thing now is to extend my line up to my chest line, and then I move on to the back neckline. The standard neckline for the back is 3 inches by 1 inch. If you want it to be wider like I just did, I just added extra 1 inch to make it 4 inches by 1 inch. So just note that the width of the neckline in front must be equal to the width of the neckline at the back, but the length doesn't have to be the same thing. Okay, so now I'm just going to shade out the parts of the patterns that we do not need. I'm going to shade out our zip bulge line and shade out all the darts, all the parts of the darts that we do not need, or the parts that we're going to cut out from our pattern. And that is pretty much the end of the tutorial. If you have any question, please let me know in the comment section. If this video has been useful to you, please give it a thumbs up, like, share and subscribe. Thank you.